Exposure to these androgen blockers, which and androgen means testosterone. So those that block that or inhibit that, when they're introduced in utero, can cause some changes that are irreversible. That man now is just going to need to live with throughout his life, as opposed to those that have exposures to these things as an adult. Simply removing them makes the process reversible and the symptoms to go away. You can have significant improvement there, right?
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Timing is really, really critical. Mm-hmm. Not only at a point in pregnancy, but at what point in your life. And and a great example is that a man's smoking will have less effect on his semen quality than his mother smoking. Or his father's, and the damage done by his mother's and father's smoking is, as you say, irreversible. Whereas if he stops smoking, he can regain his sperm count,
his function. Yeah. So and then it just gets freakier than that. I mean, it gets almost Frankensteinian. Is that a word?
Right.
We can actually change the structure of our DNA and make these things, as the word you like to use, and I love it, is intergenerational. You can pass this on. You can actually change the structure of your DNA, and so it gets passed on to your offspring and theirs for several generations.
Right.
What can you give us an example of what?
The simplest way to understand that, I would say, and the path that's clearest and most widely accepted, is that you have, say, a grandmother who's exposed, let's say, phthalates. And then that's a pregnant woman, and she is carrying a male, and that male's germ cells are affected, as we know, by his sperm count is lower. But within his body are the germ cells for his son, and those are also affected, right? So some people say this goes for 7 generations. I don't know that. It's possible. And it's not absolutely clear. The path I described to you isn't a genetic change. It isn't changing the germline, right? It's just impacting the development at various stages. But the changes in the germline, the epigenetics, if you will, is the very hot topic now and under, a great deal of research, and where it's going and how far things are being disrupted. How many generations is still up for grabs, but it's definitely a risk for later generations. You can say that.
Well, and it's pretty alarming too that then they can add their damage on top of that and just make it compounded, right?
Yes, that's right.
Goodness, there's no wonder that trend is
it's
where
multi-hit. It's a multi-hit model, right?
Yeah.
Each generations is hit over and over again. You don't start it with a clean slate. A new baby's born is not starting with a clean slate.
Boy, I just, one of the most impactful things that I learned in your book, I think, is how important it is that a mother fiercely protect her developing fetus at those critical times. And we know that's pretty much in the first trimester, right?
Right.
And forming organs.
You wisely talked about how it takes 70 approximately days to make a sperm. So that means that the man, prior to conceiving that pregnancy, hit the sperm that are going to conceive the pregnancy have been developing for 70 days. And in that time, that's a vulnerable time for those sperm. Because damage to those sperm, for example, the man smoking at that time, will affect his son's semen quality when he grows up. So it's not only the mother who has to be careful, it's the man who has to be careful.
Right. Yes, point well made there. It's just, I don't know, it's really kind of scary. Men have to really kind of take some ownership here and realize that, okay, that fact alone, that what you have done, you got to remember what you've done. If you're trying to have a family and a baby, you need to remember what you've done 2 months ago, because that, as you said, that's the sperm that's going to conceive that child, not what you've done that night
Right.
necessarily. So it definitely makes you look at that stretch of time and realize that, gosh, this is a commitment over time. I've got to make my contribution healthy, as healthy as I can.
Right.
And not be a cause or part of the problem.
Right. And this is we're mostly talking about reproduction, but I just want to mention that testosterone is also needed for other systems in the body.
Oh, for sure.
Including the brain. And there are many studies, including some of ours, which show that when the mother is exposed to higher levels of these chemicals, there's more problems, maybe less babies born, less neurotypical influences on language development and so on. So the, just as we talked about the differentiation of the genital tract, there's a differentiation of the brain.
For sure.
And that also depends on testosterone. So it's not just about reproduction.
Yes. Thank you very much for bringing that up, because that's also a part of what I do, is help these guys understand there's a whole other group of things to consider beyond the sexual aspects of testosterone.
Right.
And the other thing too that I really appreciate that you dealt with in this book, I thought it was very brave, is these things back in utero, having those effects on the brain, I'm quite sure has an effect on gender dysphoria and issues around that. And it's something that is very difficult to talk about. In fact, I'm really not going to talk about it very much more than that, because people there are some people out there that believe they're the only ones that should be able to talk about it, and they're intolerant of even discussing it.
Right.
But the fact that science is now kind of creeping into that and lending some understanding, I think is very important, and I appreciate the space you gave to it.
I just do want to add, though, that it is not my opinion that these chemicals have or don't have a role in gender dysphoria. I have not reached an opinion on that. I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
We do know that they can influence homosexuality, because we can produce homosexual animals in the presence of, say, a pesticide. That's been done in the laboratory. So those are two different things, and it's not to say that certainly that one is bad, or it's just a difference. Difference can be caused by...